This is Storytellers and Storysellers live on tape. You're listening to me, Vineet Kanabar, on the IVM Podcast Network. Every episode on this podcast, you will hear people who are creating great entertainment or helping make it happen behind the scenes. We talk to storytellers and storysellers on every single episode, and I'm always excited when there is a musician on the show. You might be familiar with some of the episodes we've done with iconic musicians. We had Usha Uthup on last month. We have The Evil on this month as well. Today I'm talking to Darshan Doshi. Darshan Doshi is a drummer and a composer who has worked on Bollywood films such as Rock On, Black, Dhoom 2, Bhaag Milkha Bhaag, Queen, Secret Superstar, Fitoor, Dear Zindagi, basically every good film in the last 10 years. He tours with Salim, Sulaiman, Farhan Akhtar, Adnan Sami, Diljit, Dosanjh, Amit, Trivedi, and he is an integral part of Coke Studio India and MTV Unplugged. Darshan was lauded in the Limca Book of Records, and you love this, as the youngest Indian drummer in 1997. He is an inspiration to many with his work in music and in bringing drum learning to India by initiating drum camps, similar to Drum Fantasy Camp in Chicago and the 21 Drums Camp in Ireland. These are the ones that he represents the country at as well. Over his illustrious career, Darshan has been associated with many bands, including Fusonica, Akriti, Defying Gravity, Tapasya, Nakshatra, and of course the Darshan Doshi trio. Darshan, I think that's just an amazing introduction. I don't think anyone has got like that kind of a star-studded introduction yet on this show. Welcome to Storytellers and Storysellers.
Thank you, man.
Thank you so much for joining
very
us.
Sweet introduction of saying everything. I think pretty much you've covered most of it. But yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah, I mean, I loved reading that out, and I'm going to go into a bunch of things. But before we start talking to Darshan, we will be back after these messages on Storytellers and Storysellers. This is Vineet Kanabar. We're on IVM Podcast. Don't go anywhere.
Hey, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Think Fast, Varun and Suchita discuss Zakir Khan's biryani brand and the PVR Inox merger. On The Longest Constitution, Priya talks about the legal aspects of cow slaughter in India and how it affects the livelihoods of butchers and other communities. On Big Talk with Tiny Humans, Devi Shobha and Meghna share tips on how we can motivate our kids to do better without being a nag. On Hansavani, here's the story Zehen Mein Atka Hua Sa Kuch. It explores the history of the bloodbath and tragedy brought on by religious conflicts. And on Say No to Drama, Chetna decodes the concept of green flags at work and the ones you should look out for. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. Also, don't forget to rate us on any of the platforms you're listening to us on, including the one you're listening to us on now. And also, please do check us out on YouTube. We have a number of channels. They're all available on ivmpodcast.com/YouTube. We're also doing a small listener survey to help us understand you, the listener, better, and how you like our shows, how you respond to the advertising, and so on. We'd really appreciate it if you could spare a few minutes to fill it out. It's at ivmpodcast.com/survey. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors on the network this week: SBI Life Insurance, India Water Portal, and Jupiter, a digital banking app. Thank you so much for making this possible.
And we're back. We're talking to the accomplished drummer, composer, musician Darshan Doshi. We're doing this in studio. It's my second episode back. I'm very excited. Darshan sitting across me. We're having a cup of coffee and we're going to start talking music. Darshan, let me get started by asking you about your first accomplishment that I read, and I was just like, wait, what? So Darshan is about, I would say, a year older than I am. He was born in 86, and in 1997, at the age of 11, right, or 10 or 11,
Right, 11.
he entered the Limca Book of Records as the youngest Indian drummer at the time, right? I think, Darshan, you started playing music at the age of 2, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And in about 9 years' time, you had all of this accomplishment. I mean, tell us what early music was like for you, right? And here's where I'm coming from. There are prodigies, and then there are people who really practice and learn and everything, right? But you're clearly in the former bracket. How does a prodigy then really start getting amazing at what you do? What was your early years like?
So, firstly, obviously my name came at the age of 11 in 1997. But my father, being a musician and someone who really loves to collect things and tries to, whether it's a picture to a video to everything he had collected from the age of 2. So I started playing at the age of 2. My father is also a teacher, and he runs his academy in Juhu, which is called the Manoranjan Music Academy. So the minute I was born in the house, I could just hear drums, tabla, keyboard, violin, guitars. Everything is like there. Like, you can hear everything going every morning I get up.
Right.
And him being a drummer actually, pushed me to become this, because back in the day when he used to play with his band, he had this massive drum kit with lights on it, and he had this look that he had on stage, and I was like, man, this is so cool. This is like really amazing. I really want to do this. So that's where my first, thing towards drum happened. And I think when I was around 18 or 20 months old, he saw me playing on the table like this, on just to a FM channel while going on, and some song was playing, and he saw me playing in time. So that's where he realized, man, this guy already has some sense of rhythm in him, and that's where my training kind
The
of
genes have worked.
Yes,
He
yes.
realized, ye pahunch gaya.
Exactly. So that's where my journey started.
Right.
He started teaching me some basics of drums, and then I started attending his concerts, and in every concert I used to have a little 5-minute performance wherein I used to play some garba rhythms. I come from a Gujarati family, so obviously dandiya and garba are like the biggest grooves to learn first.
Right, absolutely.
So that's where it all started, and then he obviously used to play Navratris and stuff like that. So I used to go with him, and started slowly like playing with him, like with a smaller set that he bought me at the age of, I think, 4 or 5. I think I got a really cute drum set
That's such a cute visual.
made in
man.
Kolkata.
I'm
Yeah,
sure
very
he's like massive thing, and yours is
I'm
next.
like a small this thing in there. And then I used to get my 5 minutes feature during the concert. And I think during one of the concert, I think when I was 6 or 7, is when the composers Kalyanji Anandji,
Right.
they were there at the concert, and they saw me playing this 5-minute performance. And during 94, they were planning this band which was called Little Wonders,
Right.
which was a 3-hour concert only by kids. So singers, musicians, dancers, mimicry artists, you name it, and it's a 3-hour concert only by kids.
Right.
And they were trying to form this band. So that band obviously had Sunidhi Chauhan, Shreya Ghoshal, Aditya Narayan, Divya Kumar, Akriti Kakkar, all these amazing artists who've become really big now.
Right.
And so that's where my journey started with them in 1994, where I used to get like a 10-minute performance with a very amazing tabla player called Ojas Adhia. Again, he's a phenomenal tabla player right now in the current scenario. And so we started like slowly touring, and then my first US tour was in 97, where I was 11 years old, taking like a big suitcase alone, going for a 1-month tour.
Oh, wow.
And luckily my school that time, like we had this first term exams, and my principal, when she came to know, she was like, no, you need to go for the tour. Your exams will happen after March. You can give, generally मार्च में तो सबका फाइनल टर्म हो जाता है, तो मैंने फाइनल के बाद फर्स्ट सेमेस्टर का एग्जाम दिया था, जस्ट बिकॉज फॉर शी अंडरस्टूड हाउ बिग दिस टूर वाज फॉर मी एज एन आर्टिस्ट, एंड दैट्स व्हाई आई रियली यूज्ड टू लव माय स्कूल, उत्पल संघवी स्कूल हियर इन जुहू, एंड दे रियली सपोर्टेड मी एज एन आर्टिस्ट. So that's where this whole journey started. And by the age of 11, my father had so many videos and photographs for all these concerts that I had performed in America, London and Australia, that one of his friends suggested, why don't you, he's been playing for so many years already, why don't you put this to the Limca Books of Records?
Right.
So he put this big file and he sent it to them, and hardly within like 25 days we got the letter and the certificate saying that we declare that he's the youngest drummer of
That
India.
must have been like such an amazing feeling, right? At 11, it must have been like, yo, I'm going somewhere.
The best part was that I was really everybody wanted to take a picture in the school, because my photo came in the Bombay Times like front page during that time. And one day I was there in school and I get a call saying that the principal has called you, and I'm like, man, now what did I do? I have not done anything wrong though. And the principal told me that she gave me about 25 numbers of magazines and everybody who wanted to interview me, and like everybody's calling the school because the Bombay Times says that he's from Utpal Sanghvi school. So everybody started calling the school because they didn't have my number. And then they connected them to my father, and then that's
an amazing start to the career. Let me ask you this before we move on to talking about more of your work. Now, I am a failed musician, right? I can't play an instrument, not for want of trying, right? I mean, also I used to sing. I still sing in my bathroom, but I used to sing with a band. I tried very hard to learn instruments. It just didn't happen for me, right? I still think that I can play decent 4x4, but I can keep a beat, and agar 4x4 chal raha hai, to baja lunga main. Guitar, I can't play. I've forgotten all chords I knew, right? So I am the classic case of a musician who seems to have some talent, but even practice doesn't seem to get me anywhere, right? You're, on the other hand, someone who's born into an environment of music, obviously with immense natural talent, and then you've spent so many years practicing it. I think you're the perfect person to ask this question. What percentage is it talent and what percentage is it hard work?
See, पहले तो आपको ये जो म्यूज़िक का एक क्या बोलते हैं ब्लेसिंग होता है ना, वो एक तो थोड़ा ऊपर से आता है. लाइक यू नीड टू बी ब्लेस्ड विद अ लिटिल बिट ऑफ म्यूज़िक. कोई लोग ऐसे मतलब होते हैं कि मतलब एज यू सेड लाइक मतलब कुछ भी कर लो वो रिदम में नहीं कुछ कर सकते, या फिर वो सुर लगता ही नहीं है, मतलब कितना भी आप रियाज कर लो बट वो है ही नहीं आपके अंदर, तो वो नहीं हो सकता, तो फिर वहाँ छोड़ देना चाहिए. Obviously there's a lot of hard work. Yes, there is 20-25% of talent, but I feel for me to reach this level today, I had to, even being my father being a musician and everything being there, the vision that I had for this instrument and where I wanted to take this and where I wanted to see myself was very, very far. It's still very far. Right. I'm still on a journey. But you need to really put a lot of hard work. I used to practice 6 to 8 hours a day, focusing on different genres of music, because I always felt that I don't want to be in like one band or one setup. I wanted to explore, all kinds of music. So whether it's pop, rock, fusion music, I learned tabla for 10 years to understand what is Indian rhythms all about. We have so much amazing information in this country. Actually, half of them don't even use it, unfortunately. But if you see the north and the south, the Carnatic music and the Indian classical music, it's insane. And especially for a rhythm player, there's so much information. So I really wanted to explore that. Not that I wanted to play like Ustad Zakir Hussain, which I can never do, but I wanted that information which I can then use it on drums,
right?
And when I communicate and when I share the stage with a tabla player or a mridangam player, I exactly know what he's playing,
right?
So for me to answer him back becomes very easy,
right?
So all these things are there, and especially because we are in Bollywood, there are so many songs which has Indian grooves, and so उसमें क्या होता है, वो जो एक swing रहता है Indian grooves का, वो जनरली बाहर के ड्रमर्स या वेस्टर्न ड्रमर्स जो ओनली ड्रम सीखते हैं वो स्विंग उतना समझ नहीं पाते.
right.
अगर अपना जो साउथ का एक 6/8 का एक जो ग्रूव रहता है, उसका एक जो मज़ा है, राजस्थानी ग्रूव्स के जो एक स्विंग का एक मज़ा है, तो वो मुझे जानना था, सो दैट व्हेन आई प्ले दोज ग्रूव्स आई शुड बी लाइक इन सिंक विद देम, सो दैट्स व्हाई आई स्टडीड दोज थिंग्स. I studied various different genres of music, and also I wanted to not sound like somebody who's playing tabla on drums, So first I was like, I need to play this instrument the way it needs to be played, and where I can learn that only in the West, because it comes from there, right? So I started understanding, the masters from there, from the 1960s, like Buddy Rich and Tony Williams, and that's where actually my guru, Mr. Ranjit Barot, who's again a phenomenal drummer, composer from India. He's the son of Sitara Devi ji. When I joined him as a student, he really opened like a completely different door for me, with drums. And I was like, अच्छा ये तो ऐसे बज रहा है और मैं इतने साल से ये बजा रहा था, मतलब you know what I'm saying, I was more on the Indian style of drumming,
right?
But I didn't have that whack of a Western drummer,
right?
So when I joined him is when this completely different universe opened for me. And पहले 3 महीने तो मुझे बोला कि आप ड्रम्स को हाथ भी मत लगाइए, मैं आपको ये 2-3 फोल्डर सीडीज़ के दे रहा हूँ. वो टाइम पे ऑब्वियसली सीडीज़ थी जो हमें बर्न करनी पड़ती थी, तो उन्होंने बोला कि ये है, इसका ये एल्बम, आई वॉन्ट यू टू जस्ट लिसन टू दीज 10 to 15 एल्बम्स and I will meet you after 3 months.
Right.
तो पहले उन्होंने मेरा पूरा वो साउंडस्केप ही बदल दिया कि भाई ये ड्रम्स बजता कैसे, बिकॉज वो टाइम पे ना यूट्यूब था, ना इतने इजीली अवेलेबल थे हमारे पास DVDs या VHS जो कैसेट्स होती थी. तो कभी चलो कोई US चला गया तो वहाँ से हमारे लिए लेके आ गया तो बात अलग है. बट अदरवाइज इट वाज वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू गेट इन्फॉर्मेशन विच टुडेज जनरेशन इज लाइक ओवरलोडेड विद इन्फॉर्मेशन कि कहाँ शुरुआत करें वही नहीं पता अभी. सो आई वेंट द हार्ड वे. आई हैड टू लाइक एक CDs के लिए एक DVD के लिए मतलब रुकना पड़ता था. एंड दैट्स वाई उसका एक इम्पोर्टेंस भी था मेरे पास बिकॉज व्हेन आई गॉट दैट आई यूज्ड टू पूरा उसको निचोड़ता था मैं कि हर गाना क्या है, कैसा ग्रूव बजा रहा है, क्या ये बजा रहा है, इसका सिम्बल्स कैसे बज रहा है, डायनामिक्स क्या है उसका बजाने का. तो आई रियली वेंट इनटू डिटेलिंग ऑफ ऑल दीज थिंग्स and that's where a completely, as I said, a completely different universe opened for me. And then there on, obviously I just one by one things started falling into place. I met Shankar Ehsaan Loy, and then from there on Rock On happened. Again, one of the only few albums where a drummer has played all the songs.
Right.
Generally आजकल तो produced ही हो जाता है, कभी कुछ एक गाना ये फिल्म में बजा लिया, कभी 2 गाना वहाँ बजा लिया, बट जनरली पूरा एल्बम साथ में लाइव करने को कभी नहीं मिलता. तो रॉक ऑन वाज वन दैट अपॉर्चुनिटी विच शंकर एहसान लॉय गिव मी, एंड इट वाज एन इनक्रेडिबल एक्सपीरियंस working with them for almost a month and a half on this album. And then from there on, Coke Studio, MTV Unplugged, and from A.R. Rahman to Amit Trivedi, I've pretty much played for everybody.
Love it, absolutely love it. What I'm hearing from you though is that, and what I'm hearing, as it echoes what I've heard from other really people who are really accomplished at what they do, is that your natural talent is God's gift. What you do with it and how you do what you do with it is very important.
Exactly.
And I love the humility with which you said, यार एक Indian tradition भी है, एक Western tradition भी है. I may be more suited to this one, but the knowledge I can get from either will make me a better drummer.
Absolutely,
right? That openness, that humility, I think is critical to learning. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I think you have to keep, as a good musician, if you really want to reach that level, you need to keep your ears open all the time.
Right.
You need to be a good student. Because ये ऐसा ना, it's like a ocean. आप जितना भी सीखोगे वो कमी है. कभी ऐसा हो ही नहीं सकता कि हाँ मैंने तो सब हो गया. ऐसा तो
I have learnt music.
That even Ustad Zakir Hussain will never say that. Like, so it is like a ocean. You have to just, it's like about how much you are able to get out of it.
Right.
That is what it is all about. And how you are able to put that out musically. कुछ लोग होते हैं कि बहुत सारा इन्फॉर्मेशन है और जब भी कुछ मौका मिलता है सब इन्फॉर्मेशन एक साथ दे देते हैं. तो फिर उसमें क्या होता है कि वो म्यूजिकलिटी रहता नहीं. यू हैव टू प्ले दैट स्पेसिफिक. नाउ आई गिव यू एन एग्जांपल. लाइक व्हेन आई यूज्ड टू प्ले विद somebody like a Hariharan ji, he comes like the whole ghazal format. His singing is very delicate. People come to listen to those little nuances of his singing. Right. So for me as a drummer, I can't just go crazy all out, like
rolls and fills all the time.
You can't do that. So with him it was different. When I play with Adnan Sami, he comes from again a lot of Indian grooves, ढोलक पर एकदम complicated grooves कभी कभार रहता है. तो उनके साथ एक बजाने का मजा अलग है. When I play with Salim, Sulaiman, they love to have a very produced and a very big sound kind of a space. So उनके साथ एक मजा.
They also play a lot of stadiums in that sense,
yes,
right? So,
yes. So that's what I'm saying. But for me to understand that कि अच्छा musically इनको इतना देना है, इनको इतना देना है, इनको इतना देना है. So it's like I'm not even overplaying that, but I'm there doing justice to the music, and that's why I keep getting calls back from them because they are happy with because see, as a drama is the backbone, right? If I hold it down, the groove, then they can fly over it.
Yeah.
So as a musician, कभी कभार वो बहुत ज़रूरी है कि when to play and when not to play.
Love it.
ज़्यादातर लोग when not to play पे ज़्यादा ध्यान नहीं देते. सबको when to play के मुझे कभी और 50 रोल बजाने मिले, एक ड्रम सोलो मिल जाए, उस पे ज़्यादा concentration.
But इस बारे में मतलब two things just popped into my head. Actually, so many things popped into my head, but I'm going to drill it down to two. I think first thing is that I always point to Dark Side of the Moon as a great
Epic.
drummer's album.
Epic.
Right? Like, to keep the beat on such a delicately composed album, still not make it overpowered, and still be a rock drummer, right?
Absolutely,
Like, I think that's just when you said Hariharan Saab or playing like that. That just popped into my head. Right? Like just the
It's
comfort.
musicality. Just that
Absolutely.
you do justice to music there. You know, that's as a soloist when I do say like the Darshan Doshi trio, where it's like just three of us and we are all going crazy because that's a jazz fusion genre.
Right.
You know, where all the three need to be at this level.
Right.
There is no कोई support है ही नहीं पीछे. ये तीनों को ही it has to be full power there, like so उसका एक मजा अलग है. So I like to balance my my music wherein with if I do commercial music which is extremely close to me and I really enjoy doing that, but जो एक दर्शन दोशी का ड्रमर का एक जो कीड़ा है वो मैं दर्शन दोशी ट्रियो में उसको निकालता हूँ, wherein people are watching to come the Darshan Doshi the drummer, so that's where I want to then give them that fun, because I know that people who are listening to me are 85% musicians.
That is where the virtuoso drummer comes out in that sense, right? If I may say. So it's very interesting because at least the way we've consumed rock music, right? The lead singer, you have the Axl Rose archetype or the Kurt Cobain archetype, and big rock stars. Guitarists have these huge things and they're like shredding and all of that, and then the drummer is there in the background. But when you talk, when I meet a drummer like you, right, who's really down to the instrument and looking at the width of its application and learning, it's pushing the envelope on what is understood to be drumming. Let me ask you this, and you may tell me I'm completely wrong, right? And this also has something to do with your turn as a composer also, right? So especially drums today, you have programmed sounds everywhere, right? Like you said, rock on, a live drummer on all the songs.
Correct.
Super rare. I would say even some bands don't record their studio drums live anymore, right? It's just a machine at some point. I mean, you may sure be a great producer of drums and every single nuance you recreate on the machine, but it's still not live drums, right?
Absolutely.
How do you view that, both as a musician, as a composer? Is that machine your enemy? Have you found a way to make friends with it? How do you look at that?
I think it frankly depends on the composition. As much as I with me and my brother, when we are composing and when we are making songs, for us we've always maintained the live element, because I feel that एक जो live बंदा एक energy लाता ना गाने में, वो कभी भी कोई भी machine वाला वो कभी create नहीं हो पाएगा. Because क्या हो गया कि हमारे पास 10 लाइब्रेरीज है, वो 10 लाइब्रेरीज सब प्रोग्रामर्स के पास है. तो आप इनको सुनो तो उनका गाना भी वैसे सुनाई दे रहा है, इनका गाना भी वैसा सुनाई दे रहा है, तो कोई एक इंडिविजुअलिटी रही नहीं कोई बात में. यू नो व्हाट आई एम सेइंग, कि पहले यू न्यू दैट पंचम दा हैड वन साउंड टू इट. लक्ष्मीकांत प्यारेलाल इज लाइक फुल पावर, 15 drums, 25 dholaks, 20 holes. It's like full power, and you can hear that bigness in their sound, right? वो आज की डेट में एकदम ही गायब हो चुका है, बिकॉज एवरीथिंग इज साउंडिंग वेरी सिमिलर एंड वेरी थिन अकॉर्डिंग टू मी.
राइट.
तो वो मी एंड माई ब्रदर एज कंपोजर वी फील दैट के एटलीस्ट हमें जहाँ मौका मिलता है, और हमने कितने जो भी 6-7 गाने अब तक किए हैं, वी ऑलवेज मेड श्योर दैट एटलीस्ट द गिटार्स, the bass, if there is some stroke instruments or flautist or or drums or anything, if the track really demands that, we really push for the live element. And फिर कहाँ अगर कुछ ये compromise करना पड़ता है तो then we make sure कि कितना minimally उसको कर सके. But we really enjoy the live sound more, because I feel एक वो जो टीम का जो एनर्जी एक गाने में आता है ना, उसका मजा कुछ
साउंड इज डिफरेंट, द फील इज डिफरेंट,
वो
म्यूजिक इज ऑल वाइब्स, राइट?
वो ह्यूमन टच कभी मेरे हिसाब से वो मशीन को नहीं कर पाएगा. इट्स वेरी डिफिकल्ट, बिकॉज वो एक जो ह्यूमन एरर भी जो होता है ना, वो भी जरूरी है, मतलब नहीं तो सब कुछ ऐसा लगता है एवरीथिंग इज लाइक रोबोटिक, लाइक देयर इज नो स्विंग इन इट, देयर इज नो लाइक, इट्स वेरी डिफिकल्ट. कुछ प्रोग्रामर्स है जो काफ़ी अच्छा प्रोग्राम भी करते हैं, ऐसा नहीं है, बट as music composers we would always want to do live in all our albums.
Love it. Let me ask you this related question. Your turn as a composer, right? And okay, of course you're a prodigious drummer, and I know your brother plays the keyboard, if I'm not mistaken. How do you guys make it work? How has that evolution been for you working with him? How are you making it work?
So with him, it's pretty cool actually. We have both the sides sorted, which is the harmony and the rhythm side. He's there, taking care of the melody and making sure obviously the lyrics and everything is fitting well, and then I come into the whole arrangement part about how the sound of the track needs to be, what are the elements we are going to use, and then obviously sitting on the mixing and mastering and all that process as well. So I think it's a good balance that we have, and over the years, actually उसको भी पहले ड्रमर बनना था,
Right.
तो उसने भी थोड़ा ड्रम सीखा हुआ है, बट माय फादर फिगर्ड आउट कि यार ये दो ड्रमर थोड़ा मुश्किल हो जाएगा एक ही घर में. हाँ, तो थोड़ा तो उसको बोला कि भाई तू एक काम कर, थोड़ा तू कीबोर्ड सीख ले.
Right.
So he started keyboard, and then he's also a singer. He's also sung this new song with Anusha Mani and Raftaar that I spoke about on the Great Indian Murder that just came out.
Right.
So he then started learning singing, and then so then हम लोग काफ़ी almost 8-10 साल से ये सब कर रहे हैं, but because we were so busy with our live concerts and जो commitments थे इतने सारे bands के साथ, तो वो कभी time नहीं मिल पाया उसको करने के लिए. But then after last 2-3 years back we realized that now we should really go into composing and make sure that we do as much stuff with either independent music अपने YouTube channel पे कुछ करके, या फिर and nowadays obviously the web series and the OTT platforms has completely opened gates for everybody who can.
Absolutely.
If you have good stuff with you and if you are able to get it to them, I'm sure it's opened the doors for everyone.
Definitely. Right. There's so much potential, so much opportunity. I'm so glad that you and your brother have found the time to do this. Let me ask you this before we go into a break. Right. You talked about the sort of Indian drum tradition, or the tabla tradition, or Indian instruments, and you talked about the Western. If you can, like the 5-year-old kid that I am, if you can explain maybe in 2 or 3 simple axioms what one can learn from the other, or what have you learned? Maybe 3 things.
See, firstly, not just drums, any instrument आपको सबसे पहले उसका जहाँ वो पैदा हुआ है, जहाँ उसका रूट है, वो आपको उसको समझना पड़ेगा. You have to go back all the way up till there. Then I feel कि वो जो instrument जहाँ का है, वहाँ से अगर आप उसका technique, because that's the key. Now today when I play a 3-hour concert, people get, oh, you must be, you do 6 concerts in a week, 3 hours every day, you must be getting tired. But the thing is that because I've got the technique down, that I don't have to put that much energy.
Right.
I do, like for a drummer, if any drummer is listening to me right now, everything happens from the wrist and the fingers.
Right.
I don't use the arm that much.
Right.
Everything, all the power comes out, and there are different techniques like molar technique and काफी सारे, obviously उसका तो पूरा एक अलग workshop master class करना पड़ेगा. But उसका if you get the right technique from the instrument, then I feel your 50% of your job gets sorted. So what I did was for me to get my rudimental stuff, my foundation, the technique, how I sit, how I tune my drums, I learned everything from the West. And then once I got really comfortable with that, then I started putting the Indian information onto it.
Right.
Wherein कुछ तबला के बोल जो गए कि तबला के कुछ जो कायदे बोलते हैं, चक्रधार बोलते हैं, there are different talams in that, and slowly I went into Carnatic music. So then I started taking all this information and then started using in my composition. If you have heard the track Bandish Blues from the Darshan Doshi trio album, again that has a lot of elements of Carnatic music and,
Right.
and classical music and stuff like that. So I always like to do this fusion of West and this part of the country. So
Right.
So that's what I would say. Like these are the 2 things. अगर आज मैं तबला सीखता हूँ, तो it's important for me to come to India and learn tabla.
Right.
I cannot learn tabla in Canada.
Right.
So आज कोई भी इंस्ट्रूमेंट, अगर आप लैटिन म्यूजिक की बात करें या फिर अफ्रीकन म्यूजिक की बात करें, अगर आप जेम्बे बजाना चाहते हैं, ऑथेंटिक जेम्बे बजाना चाहते हैं, यू हैव टू गो एंड लिव द लाइफ इन अफ्रीका.
Right.
यू हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड वो लोग खाते कैसे, पीते कैसे, क्या म्यूजिक हो रहा है, रात को जब भी मस्ती होती है तो वो कैसे हो रही है, वो सब पूरा बहुत आपको वो लाइफ
To get the
जीना
culture in the life, yeah.
एग्जैक्टली बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है वो.
Right.
तब जाके आप वो इंस्ट्रूमेंट के एकदम अंदर जा सकते हो. दैट्स व्हाई फॉर मी व्हेनेवर आई स्टार्टेड गेटिंग दीज टूर्स अब्रॉड, आफ्टर द टूर आई ऑलवेज यूज्ड टू स्टे बैक फॉर अ वीक.
Right.
I went to Nashville. I went to Chicago, I went to New York. I wanted to see कि उनका क्या है life वहाँ. You know, what is that, what are they living, what are they eating, what are they drinking. I want to know everything.
Right.
तो जब तक कोई बंदा deep उतना नहीं जाएगा ना, तब तक आपको वो instrument का मजा नहीं आएगा.
Love it.
So
Love it.
that's what it is.
Absolutely beautiful. We're going to take a quick break and be back on Storytellers and Storysellers after these messages.
Hey, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Think Fast, Varun and Suchita discuss Zakir Khan's biryani brand and the PVR Inox merger. On The Longest Constitution, Priya talks about the legal aspects of cow slaughter in India and how it affects the livelihoods of butchers and other communities. On Big Talk with Tiny Humans, Devi Shobha and Meghna share tips on how we can motivate our kids to do better without being a nag. On Hansavani, here's the story Zehen Mein Atka Hua Sa Kuch. It explores the history of the bloodbath and tragedy brought on by religious conflicts. And on Say No to Drama, Chetna decodes the concept of green flags at work and the ones you should look out for. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. Also, don't forget to rate us on any of the platforms you're listening to us on, including the one you're listening to us on now. And also, please do check us out on YouTube. We have a number of channels. They're all available on ivmpodcast.com/YouTube. We're also doing a small listener survey to help us understand you, the listener, better, and how you like our shows, how you respond to the advertising, and so on. We'd really appreciate it if you could spare a few minutes to fill it out. It's at ivmpodcast.com/survey. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors on the network this week, SBI Life Insurance, India Water Portal, and Jupiter, a digital banking app. Thank you so much for making this possible.
And we're back. We're talking to Darshan Doshi about drumming. This has been a fascinating episode so far. Before we went into the break, Darshan was talking about how two things are important. One, if you're learning an instrument, whether it's in the Indian tradition or the Western tradition, understand the technique best. The technique is what makes it easier to play the instrument, play it right, and not get tired even when you're playing 3-hour sets every day for 6 days a week. The second thing he said, which is very interesting, almost like a ethnographic understanding of music, right? If you're going to learn the djembe, figure out how life and culture is in Africa. If you're learning to play a punk 4-piece, you figure your own things out from the streets of London maybe. It's very interesting approach, right? It reminded me, at least the first point, reminded me of a story back from my college band. We used to have this great guy when the band was started. We used to have this great guy who used to play the drums with us. We were very 17, 18-year-old guys playing music, and we didn't know what we wanted to play. Eventually we started playing funk, and this guy had poor technique. He would play the drums with the neck of the stick, which creates a very sort of loose sound from the hat instead of a crisp, funky sound, right? And I'm very sad to say that got him fired from the band. Right? At one point, we were like, listen, it's just not working out. And the guy we replaced him with, the guy who, whenever we still play, he plays drums for us. The first gig we played, the first college band competition we played with him, we won, right? So it's so important for your drummer's technique to be on point, because that made the whole difference from us struggling to qualify for the finals to winning immediately. So just a story from my ancient history to share with you about drums. Back to Darshan Doshi. Let us talk about your time working in Bollywood. I think I read out an illustrious set of films that you worked with. How is it different to work on a film versus working on maybe your own band or the stuff that you're doing yourself, right? Like here you have so much control, but there you're playing to a brief,
Absolutely.
playing with the director. How have you sort of made that process work for you?
Firstly, तो जब भी नया शुरुआत में कुछ मौका मिला तो वहाँ तो फिर I was still learning because it was very new to me. So I remember my first पहला रिकॉर्डिंग भी मिला तो कौन सा मिला, मतलब सीधा संजय लीला बंसाली सामने बैठा है ऐसा, मतलब वो मिला.
क्या
तो मतलब so the composer Monty Sharma, who's again an amazing composer, he came to watch one of the fusion concerts that I was working with Parthiv Goel, the singer, and he saw me and then he's like, अच्छा कल एक गाना रिकॉर्ड कर रहे हैं, this film ब्लैक करके एक मूवी है, उसमें गाने है ही नहीं. तो मैं अच्छा तो फिर कौन सा गाना रिकॉर्ड कर रहे हैं? तो मैंने नहीं एक ही गाना है, कुछ वो प्रमोशनल जैसा कुछ गाना होएगा वो. So I said okay cool. So we went to this Andheri, this Ava studio, and for my first time, I didn't even have I would not say like a pro kit. I was just getting there, like, it was okay, like, and my first experience with the mics and with the, wearing headphones और ये सब तो obviously वो time पे तो था नहीं, in-ears और ये सब तो वो था नहीं, तो doing all that, and then Mr. Bansali also was there during the recording as well. So it was amazing. It was for me, it was like almost playing like a live gig only, but मैं जाके थोड़ा controlled environment में उसको मैं बजा रहा था. But then later on, obviously, एक बार वो मौका मिला, फिर मेरे को लगा कि भाई अभी मुझे ये सीखना पड़ेगा. I need to know everything about what goes into a studio recording.
Right.
From the mics to the drums, how am I going to tune it? उसको माइक का डिस्टेंस कितना रहता है सिम्बल से, the skins that I use, whether it'll be coated heads or it'll be clear heads. तो फिर once I decided I want to do, means I really go deep into that.
Right.
And luckily by Rock On at least मुझे वो थोड़ा experience मिल गया था. This was 2004, I think I recorded Black, and then 2007 is when I did Rock On.
Right.
And then from there on, obviously it's been fun. Now I really understand how things work out in the Bollywood scene as well. दूसरा और एक चीज़ सीखने मिली कि जब भी आपको मौका मिलता है, तो अभी मुझे तो पता नहीं मुझे कौन से टाइप का गाना बजाना है. They just, Amit Trivedi will say, okay, come tomorrow to Yashraj Studios. Now, I don't know what has been thrown at me. And I have that much specific window. These are all very expensive studios. You can't just take your own sweet time there.
Right.
So you have to be bang on, so वो भी एक समझ में आया कि how you can understand the composer, वो story क्या है, what are the things that he likes, and if you are able to do that within 2 to 3 takes, you will be out.
Right.
So काफ़ी कुछ experience से काफ़ी कुछ चीज़ें सीखने मिली, tuning ये सब के बारे में, studios के बारे में. तो I really enjoy actually live. तो मुझे मज़ा आता ही है because वो एक crowd का जो energy रहता है वो अलग मज़ा रहता है. But while I was recording for all these movies, like even for Dhoom 2, I worked with this amazing percussionist Tawfiq Qureshi, wherein we played trash cans and buckets, and if you see that whole Hrithik Roshan in the garage, this thing that has been created by Tawfiq Qureshi ji, and I was part of that the team, and the whole thing was getting recorded. तो ये एक अलग चीज़ें सीखने मिली उनसे about how to arrange rhythm.
Right.
And that really helped me while I was producing stuff for Coke Studio with Leslie Lewis and Amit Trivedi and Hitesh Sonic and Salim Sulaiman on how to create rhythms and how to uske where 4 people are if also playing, how can each one of has their own parts, so just getting into detailing of understanding rhythm in a much better format. So बहुत कुछ सीखने मिला इतने उसमें. सो काफ़ी कुछ बोल सकते हैं कि मैंने काम पे ही सीखा है ये सब चीज़ें कि आई वॉज थ्रोन एट इट एंड देन आई हैड टू फिगर आउट माई वे के इसमें मैं कह सकता. जैसे और एक इंसिडेंट याद है रॉक ऑन के टाइम 2006, ऑब्वियसली आई वॉज नॉट इनटू दैट मच इनटू डबल पेडल. तो सडनली पता चला कि एक गाना है जो बैंड में ऐसा कोई दूसरे बैंड पे फॉर्म होने वाला है, बट उसका ड्रम्स आपको बजाना है. जहरीले करके एक गाना था. And I'm like, when I heard the song, I'm like, okay, yeah, like full power, and I'm like, I have to play double bass in this. There's no other way out, and I was not that good at it.
Right.
And I told Hasan, give me a couple of days. I just want to make sure that I really nail this song. Locked myself again. Couple of days of double bass.
I have rocked out to that song so much.
Yeah.
It is such an underrated song on that album, first of all. It is, and it's got this like driving double bass behind it. It's insane. That's amazing.
So yeah, जैसा I said कि ये सब चीज़ें मुझे बहुत टाइम नहीं मिला. मतलब it was like परसों गाना रिकॉर्ड करना है, देख लीजिए क्या करना है आपको अभी. So yeah, you got to be quick.
That's a challenge. And
it's a challenge.
Of course, you have to rise to it. And I love the fact that while you were also picking up, the technical aspects of it, core musicality also was being pushed forward with it, right? Like your musical chops with this. Let me ask you one slightly interesting thing, right? Like you mentioned having a YouTube channel as well. Now, as a musician, now you've been doing this for 30 plus years. Social media has been around for maybe half of that now. How much importance do you place on projecting a musician image onto social, or how important do you think social is now for you?
I think it's extremely important now अगर ये चीज़ आप मुझे 10-15 साल पहले पूछते तो ऑब्वियसली मैं मना करता था, बट आई थिंक आज के टाइम में बहुत बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट हो गया है कि टू हैव दैट बैलेंस ऑफ येस यू नीड टू फर्स्टली वर्क ऑन योर क्राफ्ट, वर्क ऑन योर whatever, whether you are an instrumentalist or a vocalist, get your act together first with that, and then when you come into the market as into the industry, is when you need to have the balance of both. I've seen some really amazing musicians, but people don't know them.
Right.
And that's when I realized that सिर्फ गाना बजाना तो वो तो कर ही रहे, वो हमारा मेन चीज़ है, बट उतना ही अभी आजकल you have to be more active on social media, you have to be on Instagram, Facebook, all that, do your reels and stuff like that.
Time, yeah.
And that's what it is. So I always feel that you need to move with the world. If we are heading towards that ways, then you got to be with it, and but make sure that should not become your focus.
Right.
वो सिर्फ it's just a part of me doing that to promote my music, right? I only use the medium to promote my music, but it's not that कि जब भी मुझे कोई बोलता है कि सर आपको दिन में 2 पोस्ट डालना है, आपको महीने में ये करना चाहिए, आपको ये, I don't believe in that.
Right.
I just feel that if my content is good and if I'm putting out good music, then it will reach where it has to reach,
Sure.
and I will surely push it, if I have to do interviews, if I have to do some, talk to some magazines or whatever, वो आजकल वो पूरा एक process हो गया है.
Right.
That there has to be, if an album is releasing on the 20th, you will start promoting it from the 5th, and every day there will be something, then you come up with
Build
challenges,
hype.
and it's become a part, you got to do it if you want to really push your music to that level. And specifically for independent music, वो बहुत important है, because see commercial music में तो लोग पैसा डाल के उसको promote करते ही है, 2 दिन में 20 million views हुआ है, but किसको पता है 20 million कैसे हुआ है, क्या हुआ है, वो तो हमको ही पता है. तो when as an independent artist you have to do it by yourself, then you have to use these mediums,
Right.
and it's a blessing, frankly. Today if my music is able to go to people in Japan, Korea से कोई बोलता है, कोई बांग्लादेश से, Pakistan, everywhere it's been gone through Spotify, and people are hearing and sending me emails, messages on social media. So that's what it's made the world like really close now,
Love it.
So I feel that you got to use it wisely, but don't become a 60-second musician.
Right.
Because वो एक थोड़ा dangerous हो गया कि जो आजकल के लोग हैं उनको लग रहा है कि वो बस 1 मिनट बजा ली तो हो गया. बट भाई 1 मिनट तो तूने Instagram पे बजाया है, बट जब इस जिंदगी में 3 घंटे बजाने पड़ेंगे तब क्या करेगा?
Right.
तो वो एक बैलेंस होना. That's why I'm said that पहले आप अपने क्राफ्ट और अपने आर्ट पे काम करिए, become at some pro level, and then you start using this to promote your music outside.
Of course.
Instead of starting with social media, then you are in deep trouble, my friend. Then
because then you're doing it for something
because
else,
then
you're
you
not
will
doing it for the
you will
music.
see this guy playing
Right.
great for
Right.
60 seconds, and the minute you call him for a recording, you'll be like, man, he can't even play on click.
Right.
So that is a very dangerous scene to happen nowadays. And that's why I tell even the youngsters and even the drummers who learn from me on a regular basis that spend time. It's okay to get into the scene after a couple of years, but when you get into the scene, you got to be a monster.
Love it.
Because
Words to live by.
whatever people throw at you, you should be ready with it in your back. कि अच्छा आज क्या रेगे गाना तो रेगे गाना, आज क्या कवाली. You have to be ready. वहाँ जाके फिर नहीं बोल सकते भाई ये नहीं मैं नहीं कर सकता. So that's what I believe in, that you get better at your craft and use these tools to push your music.
Love it. Absolute words to live by. I think every musician, not just every musician, anybody who's invested in being good at it and has some part of, promotion as part of what you're trying to do, get good at it first, then promote it. Darshan, let me ask you this, and I'm very intrigued to know your answer about this because of the variety of artist roles that you play. If you could talk us through the three best business decisions you took as an artist, stuff that has helped you build longevity in your career, stuff that has helped you evolve in your career, stuff that has helped you also start leaving a legacy in your career.
Business-wise, I feel that the one thing that I kind of made a good decision was to balance both the worlds, the commercial world as well, where it's all about Bollywood and doing whatever 150 concerts a year. But also maintaining that, okay, I need to also work on my music and also work on my craft and become a better drummer.
Do you have a principle for that?
So-
Some people say it's ek unki, ek apni or something like that. But
ऐसा
do you have a
कुछ नहीं
principle
है,
like
like, you know, for me, I think anything that I do, if I really love it and if I want to do it, I'll give my 200%. फिर
Right.
वो भले भजन भी शो हो तो उसको मुझे फ़र्क नहीं पड़ता, because एक बार आपने हाँ बोल दी कोई चीज़ के लिए करने के लिए, then you need to be 200%. I don't like people who will be like, अरे ये क्या Bollywood music है, ये क्या है, and then suddenly they also want to play and make money out of it,
Right.
but they think that it's shitty music
Right.
just because they are into some different genre of music. So I feel that should not happen. I think you should respect each genre. You just need to be a little more realistically as a musician, that agar aapko aaj, if you want to live in Mumbai, you want to live a good lifestyle, if you want to, you know, have a family and all that, everybody has responsibilities and you know,
Absolutely.
bills to pay.
Yeah.
You got to be have a good balance of doing commercial work, but also make sure that you are somewhere able to do your independent stuff and keep that going forward as well.
Right.
Like, you know, because वो musician के लिए मुझे काफ़ी सारे लोग बोलते कि अरे पहले जैसे ज़माने में रहता था, आप musician तो है but काम क्या करते हैं, you know.
Right.
तो वो आज to keeping that in mind, wherein I'm sure people, like say maybe some young musicians who are listening to us, you know, their parents might not be allowing them to take this as a professional thing. So that's why you need to get that bread and butter, right? तब जाके your parents will be like, हाँ चलो at least ये बंदा sorted है. फिर अगर आपको लग रहा है कि आप metal band में बजाना चाहते हैं तो आप बिल्कुल बजाइए, no problem. But unfortunately अगर आप ऐसा सोचेंगे कि मुझे सिर्फ metal ही करना है, then are you in the right country to do that?
Right.
You know, do you have that many platforms? Do you have that many stages where you can do this? You know, is what my point is.
Right.
And can you run your house by doing metal music in India?
Right.
There are bands who've done it as well. You know, I don't know where they are and what they're doing right now, but it's just that I just felt that I have to be more real, you know, when it comes to being a musician in India.
I
तो
loved
वो बैलेंस होना बहुत ज़रूरी है. तो वो आई थिंक मेरा एक बेटर एक डिसीजन था कि मैंने दोनों कमर्शियल और इंडिपेंडेंट म्यूजिक को you know, I kept it at the same level and made sure that I'm able to do both and enjoy both the worlds.
I love it. I think this is the choice, right? The choice is either you expose yourself as a musician to a variety of stuff that pays the bills, or you do what you really love and then get an IT job.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, that's the choice you're making.
Correct, absolutely.
And for anyone who's a passionate musician, I think the choice is pretty simple.
Right.
Unless you are, you know, one of those people who are so caught up with what is considered, you know, cool, or what is considered, oh, nahi, this is not my style of whatever. It's a very interesting answer. Let me ask you this, and as we sort of bring this around to close. I mean, I get so much more context now for what, shout out to Rani Kaur, what she told me about what you've been up to past few years as well, right? You've been part of international drum circles. You've been attending, I think it's called the Drum Fantasy in Chicago. And then there is the 21 Drums in Ireland.
Yeah.
And you've been trying to replicate something like that in India, right?
Yes.
Now, again, like I am a 5-year-old who knows nothing about this side of music. Tell me what you're hoping to achieve and what's the pull?
So firstly, पहले जब भी मैं गया वहाँ, मैं ऐसा कोई भी कुछ प्लान नहीं था कि मैं वैसा कुछ इंडिया में करूँगा. बट एक ही था कि मुझे लग रहा था कि इन 2014 के यार आई एम प्रीटी मच प्लेइंग द सेम थिंग. यू नो, थोड़ा एक हो जाता है कि आफ्टर अ सर्टन पॉइंट यू गेट स्टक समवेयर. लाइक, यू नो, yes, I'm playing with the best in the business, yes, I'm doing everything, but I still feel that I need to push myself. So then I got to know about the Drum Fantasy Camp, where there were 6 drummers, some of the biggest names in the drumming scene, and they were doing this camp. There was a drummer who was great in drum and bass. There was Mike Mangini from Dream Theater. There was Benny Greb, who's great with jazz fusion. There was Steve Smith, again a legend when it comes to jazz music. So ये सब अलग-अलग genres के drummers एक छत के नीचे 3 दिन के लिए आ रहे थे.
Like the Avengers of drumming.
Yeah, basically वही था. So मैं बोला भाई ये तो मैं opportunity miss नहीं करने वाला. भले कोई show आ जाए, tour आ जाए, कुछ नहीं फर्क पड़ता. ये जो है ये once in a lifetime वाला opportunity है. तो so then I went there, and then when I saw the community there, there were about 30-35 drummers from all around the world. Japan, Bolo, San Francisco, everywhere people were coming under this roof. And that 3 days ka camp completely blew me off. And I'm like, man, ये अगर मुझे चीज़ 15 साल पहले मिली होती तो यार क्या होता है यार, मतलब I could have been where, like musically I would have been so rich and I could have done so many things. And that's when I thought कि यार ऐसा कुछ अभी मुझे यार Indian drummers के लिए कुछ करना है, wherein somebody who's not even able to come to the metro cities, मतलब not even from like Delhi, Calcutta, Bombay की भी बात नहीं कर रहा. I wanted to get people from as you said, like any of these smaller states and smaller cities where they are not they don't have any idea about all these things, and that's when we started doing drum camp here in India. So the first one was in 2019, where we took them to a really amazing place in Lonavala by the lake. We got some 4-5 villas and 3 days of only drums, 30 drummers coming from all around the country. There were 3 teachers including me, and सुबह ब्रेकफास्ट साथ में करे स्टूडेंट्स के साथ, बाद में अपने अपने क्लास पे सब जाएंगे. सो एक वो जो एक ड्रमिंग कम्युनिटी का एक मैंने जो एक व्हाट डू आई से, they were like very very happy and very very satisfied that something like this is happening in India, and so that's the kind of response we got. We made sure that now we need to do this every year. So last year we did it in Mumbai itself because of the COVID scenario. We could not take them outside. Right. But we did it at the Mumbai Music Institute here for 3 days, and that also had Ranjit Barot, and we featured Vivek Rajagopalan, who's again a Carnatic musician. So we like to not just, as I said, कि सिर्फ drums को information नहीं देना है, हर चीज़ का उनको एक ज्ञान मिलना चाहिए. So there was a percussionist called Varun Venkat, who's a percussionist from Pune, and he specialized in West African rhythms. So there was a session by him. So when the student comes for those 3 days, the amount of information he's taking back and the things that he sees around himself, I feel will change anybody's life. Love it. And that's one reason that I wanted to do it in India. And then after that thereon I felt that मुझे at least 2-3 साल में ऐसा एक camp तो मुझे खुद as a student attend करना है. Right. And that's when I went to Ireland also, and sometimes they hear me drumming and they say, "Bhai, why are you here?" But they don't understand I'm here to not to just learn, but just to get that energy around. Right. From to be around masters, the people who I've just seen on DVDs and CDs. आज मैं उनके साथ बैठ के कॉफी पी रहा हूँ, मैं खाना खा रहा हूँ, तो वो एक
validation.
हाँ, मतलब एक जो होता है कि यार इन्होंने मुझे सुना और इन्होंने he really liked what I did. So right. I felt that is very important, and just to get that good positive energy from them and then come back to your India and work.
I mean, 2 things really stand out. One is, I think you're among those very rare people who have met their heroes and not been disappointed. Right? Second thing is, obviously you're bringing the community together, you're sharing learning, stuff that you have accumulated over so many years, accumulated from so many other places, making that available to people who may not ever have the chance to get that. So, which is just so commendable and so heartwarming that you're doing this and spending time doing this. Darshan, it's amazing to see your dedication to your craft and the humility with which you carry it as well, right? Before I let you go, I want to ask you very short, snappy, quick questions. This is a segment that we call Water with Vineet. We have a glass of water here. I'm going to drink it. We'll do a cheers and call it Water with Vineet. Yeah, I have 3 questions for you. My first question is the longest one, which is why I put it first, right? Over your career, if I were to say, break it up into 3 phases, right? And tell me who your biggest influence in that phase was. I'm saying 3. You can make it 4 or 2 or whichever you like. But what I really want to know is, when you started, who did you want to sound like? When you were really growing and spreading your wings, who did you want to sound like? And now where do you want to see your sound go?
So from 90 to 2000 for me, I just wanted to be like my father. Right. He was my idol, and he was somebody who I was just looking up to, and he was teaching me, and I just wanted to be like him. From 2000 to 2010, I wanted to be like Ranjit Barot. Right. Because it's like the minute I saw him, that's it, game over. It was like, बस मैं क्या बजा रहा हूँ, कुछ आता ही नहीं मुझे करना. तो मतलब वो ऐसा ही था कि बस यही है, इनके जैसा कुछ अगर थोड़ा भी मिल गया इनसे तो बहुत है. From 2010 to 2020, I would say that I realized that I don't want to be like anybody. I have to be me.
Right.
You know, I need to tell my story to the world. Because क्या हो जाता है कभी, when you start learning from these masters, you start sounding like them.
Right.
You know, and my guru only told me, he's like, मैं तो हुई, मतलब you know, बट मुझे आपसे जानना है कि आपकी स्टोरी क्या है. व्हाट आर द अप्स एंड डाउन्स यू हैव गॉन थ्रू इन लाइफ, यू नो, योर ब्रेकअप्स, योर, आई वांट टू नो योर स्टोरी. बिकॉज हर प्लेइंग में आपको कुछ एक बंदे का स्टोरी मिलता है, यू नो. एंड दैट्स वेयर आई स्टार्टेड क्रिएटिंग माई ओन साउंड एंड आई फेल्ट दैट ही इज लाइक, यू हैव लर्नड थिंग्स फ्रॉम मी, नाउ यू गॉट टू अनलर्न देम,
Right.
विच इज़ वेरी वेरी डिफिकल्ट.
Right.
यू नो, कि ये मुझे आता है बट ये मैं नहीं बजाऊंगा, वो करना बहुत मुश्किल है. तो वो जो फेस था उसमें ऑब्वियसली आइडल्स तो काफ़ी सारे थे. एंड सबसे बड़े जो आइडल है ऑब्वियसली उस्ताद जाकिर हुसैन, यू नो, हिज बर्थडे वाज यस्टरडे. उनके साथ एक था, एक ड्रीम के कभी तो उनके साथ, यू नो, स्टेज शेयर करना. उनके सामने बजाने का काफ़ी मौका मिला, मतलब बिकॉज ऑफ हिज फादर्स बरसी विच हैपन्स ऑन एवरी 3rd of February. आई यूज्ड टू गेट एन अपॉर्चुनिटी टू प्ले इन फ्रंट ऑफ हिम. बट एक था कि उनके साथ कभी बजाने का मौका मिला, एंड दैट केम ट्रू इन 2017 व्हेन आई गॉट अ कॉल फ्रॉम हिम. सो बस वही था कि उसके बाद ऐसा था कि नाउ इट हैज़ टू बी दर्शन दोशी साउंड. इट कैन नॉट बी, आई डोंट वांट टू साउंड लाइक एनीबॉडी एल्स. सो दैट्स इट. सो यू गॉट टू जस्ट फॉलो दैट देन.
Awesome. That's such a great and complete answer. My second question to you is, what was the best gig you've performed and what is the worst gig you've performed?
वर्स्ट गिग तो नहीं बोलूँ मुश्किल है. मतलब कोई ऐसा, मैंने पहले ही आपको बोला, मेरे लिए कोई वर्स्ट नहीं रहता. मतलब इट्स लाइक भले मुझे कम बजाने मिले कि कोई कुछ, यू नो, ज़्यादा, यू नो, अच्छा क्राउड नहीं मिला, ऐसा कुछ रहता है. बट ऐसा वर्स्ट गिग तो आई डोंट.
How I meant worst was like not you playing badly, but like, oh, dude, ये क्या चल रहा है, मैं कहाँ बजा रहा हूँ, sort of place. I'm sure you're really good.
अनफॉर्चुनेटली मैं ऐसे लोगों के साथ बजाते थे, मुझे ऐसा लगा अरे मैं कहाँ आ गया. ऐसा कुछ कभी ये नहीं होता.
That is perfectly fine.
Yeah, and I think as I said, my one of my favorite gig has to be with Ustad Ji, because it's like it was something that I wanted my father to see me, that I've reached a stage where I'm able to share my, you know, share the stage with him. So that was a big like क्या बोलते हैं उसको, एक बड़ा सा ड्रीम था कि बस ये तो हो जाए कभी. तो वो that surely will be one of my favorite, and the gig which is very close to my
Where
heart.
was this?
This was at Shanmukhanand Hall.
Oh, love it.
Yeah.
Right. My last question is, what next? What should fans look forward to from you in the rest of 2022?
So obviously you will be seeing me with Farhan Akhtar, with Salim, Sulaiman. You know, I'm working on some project with some independent artists as well. So that's coming out soon. I'm also in the process. We obviously just released the live on tour 2021 album. But now I want to do something in the studio and feature some guest artists from abroad. And really try to do some fusion stuff with them. So that is something that's in the pipeline for this year. And we've been also invited by a lot of jazz festivals after listening to our album. So hopefully, if COVID now doesn't come in the way, we should be playing at some of the biggest names in the jazz scene as well.
Love it. All the very best. I know you're heading out on tour with Farhan Akhtar this week. We're recording this sometime in March for this to go out in April for anyone who's going to look at the calendar. All the best with that. Heartwarming to hear you talk. I mean, just so cool of you to talk about music in a way that everyone can relate to and can really understand. I wish you all the best. Thank you so much for being on Storytellers and Stories. I hope you had fun.
I love it. Thank you for having me.
That's it on this episode of Storytellers and Story Sellers. If you like this episode, give us a shout on social media. Go to IVM Podcast or Ashcharya Fuck It. That's ASHCHARYA Fuck It. Tell us if you like this episode. Tell us who else you think we should have on this show. That's it from me, Vineet Kanabar. This is goodbye.